Greetings everyone, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, here to bring you another retro review from past seasons of The Loud House. In today's video, we take a look at the Season 4 episode where Lana tries to prove something to a snob, only to realize how little she had to gain and how much more she was willing to lose. Today's episode is titled, A Mutt Above. First we'll discuss the plot, and then my thoughts and critiques with my final score. So, let's get right into it. In this episode, Lana tries to train Charles to compete in a dog show to prove to her classmate Lacey St. Clair and her multi-award winning Victoire that they aren't as dirty and unsophisticated as Lacey says, but Charles doesn't seem to take his training seriously. With a little help from Lola, Charles becomes more sophisticated in both appearance and behavior when competing in the dog show, but this drastic change causes him to turn down the idea of playing in the usual way he and Lana used to do together, making Lana feel guilty for what she had done. Surprisingly, Charles picks up the scent of his old tennis ball under Lana's hat, reverting back to who he used to be, and he and Lana forfeit the contest. The episode ends with the two of them having fun the way they were meant to, and of course giving Lacey and Victoire a muddy reminder of what their loving relationship is all about. Well, that concludes the plot of the episode, so now we come to my thoughts and critiques. Whenever you hear fans ask, what happened to the slice of life aspect that the show was founded on in the beginning? Just direct them to this episode right here, and they'll find what they've been looking for. There's just something to a story about a kid and their pet that just feels so right in every way. It has a wholesome feel to it, and this episode really brought out the wholesomeness between Lana and Charles. The plot is also very basic, it being the typical childhood rivalry of, my pet is better than your pet and I'm going to prove it in an upcoming contest. Coincidentally, this episode is very similar to that of Toads and Tiaras, in which one character trains an unsophisticated character to become more prim and proper in order to win a contest that's the total opposite of who that character really is. The only difference though is this time Lana is not the one being trained. She's the trainer, and her attempts to train Charles didn't go the way she wanted. She can train animals to be more friendly and sociable like we see in other episodes, but the one thing she's not is a pageant powerhouse, and her time trying to impersonate her twin in a previous pageant made that very obvious. Well, I mean, she could have turned to Lincoln for some help, but he was, you know, sort of taken out of commission here. Instead, she turned to Lola for her pageant expertise, and given the results she promised, clearly Lola was more qualified to train Charles than anyone else. It makes you wonder if Lola can transform any one of their other pets into show animals, but that's beside the point. To be honest, I'm a little surprised Lola didn't have more involvement in the episode, as in either making the story a joint twin episode or replace Lana with Lola, although I think the former idea would make more sense. Like maybe Lola is watching Lana and Charles and then Lacey and her dog show up to mock them, prompting Lola to step in to defend her sister, dragging Lana into a conflict she wants no part of, and accepting the dog show challenge since Lola and Lacey are successful contest competitors in their respective fields. There would have been a more genuine sense of competitiveness if Lola was the star, given how the atmosphere of the dog show was like the canine version of her Little Miss Beauty pageants. Even the ending where Lola angrily wonders why anyone would walk away from a trophy made the case for her to be in the spotlight, but Lana being the main focus was just as good. She found out very quickly Charles no longer wanted to be the dog he once was, meaning Lana lost her favorite companion with whom she can happily roll around in the mud. She traded away the good times she used to have with the messy canine version of herself for what was effectively the classy canine version of Lola, only to prove a point to a snob like Lacey. Speaking of whom, Lacey is one of those characters the show really needs to use more of in the future. Besides Lola, Lacey is a good foil to Lana in pretty much every way. Assuming she's from a wealthy and sophisticated family based on how she and Victoire look and behave, she would make for an interesting rival, sort of like how Chandler is an interesting rival to Lincoln and his friends. And yes, like any other rival who thinks they're all that and more compared to those she thinks are beneath her, seeing her and her dog getting sprayed with mud was well deserved after how they treated their competition. Even so, she still managed to tie for first place with Lana in the dog show, and ultimately won after Lana walked out, which brings me to the ending Toads and Tiaras didn't pull off, but should have. Conceptually, Lana was just like Lincoln when her brother tried to make her a winner in the Prim and Perfect pageant. They both regretted what they tried to do and why they did it in the first place. In a sense, both kids were going to throw each competition in favor of losing the prize they wanted, but this is where one episode had the right ending and the other didn't. While in this episode, Lana left the dog show with Charles, thus forfeiting their participation in the tie-breaking walk-off with Lacey, Lana continued to compete in the Prim and Perfect pageant by performing a talent that was anything but prim and perfect, yet she still won the grand prize anyway. I didn't mention this in my Toad review, but that episode should have gone down the same path as Community Disservice and have the star in question forfeit. Both instances were about not living up to the requirements of the contest they were in, and they didn't deserve to win. Lana clearly didn't deserve to win the title of Miss Prim and Perfect based on what she did in her street clothes, but the story concluded with the participation trophy style ending, and it was an undeserved victory. In this episode, however, Lana quits, and that's the last we see of the dog show. The judges don't give her the victory because she learned being who you are is better than being someone you're not, or anything like that. She could have won, but she chose to leave, and I liked that ending more than the ending to Little Miss Prim and Perfect. Sophistication is not for Lana, and it's certainly not for Charles either, and he's my last positive of the episode. Actually, he's more of a positive in terms of how he was written. He was presented as an actual dog who acted how normal dogs would normally act. His performance was more authentic than his two appearances in the episodes Pets Peeved and Lovebirds. Look, I try not to be so critical with those episodes, but I'm not that big of a fan of the kind of episodes where the main Loud House pets are acting more human than they should be. Once in a while, it's fine, but to make 2 full episodes humanizing them just doesn't sit right with me. Maybe those episodes are a little too cartoony for my taste, but I'd much prefer to see Charles getting distracted by butterflies and just act like a regular dog like we've seen in many episodes prior to this one. Even being able to sniff out his old tennis ball was a reminder of what a dog should be, and more importantly, what they shouldn't try to be just to make their human happy. Still, I can't say he can't be trained to be fancier and more elegant and run an obstacle course, so it's not like he's a lost cause. In the right set of Lola's hands, he can be trained to pour tea and hand out roses like it's something dogs do all the time. I mean, if other dogs can be trained to play the harp, there's still hope for Mr. Charles Loud Esquire. And yes, I totally made that last part of his name up. Overall, this episode is very simple, down to earth, and just had a good all-around feel to it, especially if you own pets. Lana and Charles both knew who they were, but it was Lana who got caught up in a rivalry with a snob that nearly ruined her once great relationship with a loyal household companion, who became the dog version of Lola. Their exit from the dog show was tastefully done, the same being said for the writing and presentation of how a dog like Charles is meant to act on screen, and for what she was worth, Lacey was a good foil to Lana, and hopefully she gets another episode in the future. While I still believe Lola should have been more involved in the story besides conducting the off-screen training of Charles, as in maybe she should have been in Lana's place given the storyline circumstances, Lana taking the lead while coming to terms with how neither she nor her dog need to prove anything to Lacey or Victoire was just as good. With that said, I give A Mutt Above a 9.7 out of 10. Well folks, that concludes my review of A Mutt Above. Sometimes I get to thinking how this episode would have played out if Charles wasn't the pet being used for the plot. Lana is usually seen with hops more than any other animal, so do you think a similar story could have played out the same way if they switched out the dogs in favor of frogs? Write your thoughts down in the comments and let's see if you would choose a different pet. So, as far as this episode goes, what did you guys think of it? Love it? Hate it? Something you would add? Change? Keep it as it is? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to this channel for the latest Loud House content. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys for the next video, but until then, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, signing off. Peace out, home slices.